Esther. In a world searching for meaning, few texts have shaped history, hearts, and human identity like the Bible. But beyond the verses and chapters lies a story, ancient, eternal, and alive. Welcome to Speed Reads, where we journey book by book through Scripture, not in fragments, but as sweeping narratives rich with depth, drama, and divine design. Whether you're rediscovering these sacred texts or exploring them for the first time, each episode brings you closer to the heartbeat of the Bible, one book at a time. Esther begins not in Israel, nor in Jerusalem, but in the opulent and glittering courts of Persia, the most powerful empire on earth. King Xerxes, also known as Ahasuerus, rules over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Kush. He throws a lavish feast lasting 180 days, displaying the wealth and grandeur of his kingdom. Afterward, he holds a 7-day banquet for all people in the citadel of Susa, a city drenched in wealth, excess, and absolute power. During this feast, Xerxes, in a drunken display of pride, commands his queen Vashti to appear before the crowd wearing her royal crown, likely a humiliating demand intended to parade her beauty before intoxicated men. Vashti refuses. Her bold act of defiance shocks the empire. The king, enraged and embarrassed, strips her of her crown and banishes her from his presence. Time passes. The king misses Vashti, but cannot undo his royal decree. So his advisors suggest a royal beauty pageant, a search throughout the empire for the most beautiful virgins. The women are brought to the palace, given beauty treatments for a full year, and then presented before the king one by one. Enter Esther, a young, beautiful Jewish woman raised by her cousin Mordecai after the death of her parents. Esther's Hebrew name is Hadassah, but she goes by her Persian name to conceal her identity. She is taken into the king's harem, and though she is just one among many, she stands out. Esther finds favor in the eyes of Haggai, the custodian of the women, and eventually in the eyes of King Xerxes himself. He crowns her queen of Persia, though he does not know her heritage. Meanwhile, Mordecai, who sits at the king's gate, uncovers a plot to assassinate the king. He informs Esther, who tells Xerxes in Mordecai's name. The incident is recorded in the royal chronicles, though Mordecai receives no immediate reward. It's a small detail, but one that will become crucial. Then we meet the villain of the story, Haman, a descendant of the Amalekites and newly promoted official who demands honor from all who see him. Everyone bows, except Mordecai. Mordecai refuses to bow not out of pride but likely because of Haman's ancestry and deep-rooted hostility toward the Jews. Infuriated, Haman doesn't just seek revenge on Mordecai. He plots the genocide of all Jews in the empire. Haman approaches Xerxes with a vague accusation. There is a certain people dispersed among the nations who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different. They do not obey the king's laws. It is not in your best interest to tolerate them. Xerxes, unaware of the implications, agrees. Haman casts lots called Purim to determine the date of the massacre. He issues a royal edict. On the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, are to be annihilated. Panic spreads. Mourning erupts among the Jews. Mordecai dons sackcloth and ashes and sends word to Esther, pleading with her to go before the king and beg for mercy. But there's a deadly complication. No one, not even the queen, may approach the king uninvited. To do so unbidden is to risk death, unless the king extends his golden scepter. Esther hesitates, but Mordecai's words ignite her purpose. He tells her, "Do not think that because you are in the palace, you alone will escape. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? It is a turning point." Esther rises with courage and conviction, saying, "If I perish, I perish." She asks all the Jews in Susa to fast for 3 days. Then, dressed in her royal robes, she approaches the throne. Time seems to freeze, but Xerxes extends the scepter. She lives. Esther does not rush. She invites the king and Haman to a private banquet. At the banquet, she invites them to yet another feast the next day. Haman, elated by the queen's favor, is nevertheless enraged by Mordecai's continued refusal to bow. He builds a gallows 75 feet high, intending to hang Mordecai the next morning. But that night, the king cannot sleep. He orders the royal chronicles to be read aloud. As fate or providence would have it, the servant reads the account of Mordecai's earlier act of loyalty, saving the king from assassination. Xerxes is stunned. What honor has Mordecai received for this? Nothing, the servant replies. The king demands immediate action. Just as Haman enters the court to request Mordecai's execution, Xerxes asks him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Thinking the king means him, Haman suggests a lavish public display. Robes, a royal horse, and a parade. To his horror, the king orders him to do all this for Mordecai. Haman is forced to honor the man he hates, leading him through the streets in humiliating irony. That evening, at Esther's second banquet, the king again asks what she desires. She finally speaks, "If I have found favor in your eyes, spare my people, for we have been sold to destruction." Shocked, the king demands, "Who would dare do such a thing?" Esther points to Haman. This vile Haman is our adversary and enemy. Furious, the king storms out. Haman throws himself at Esther's feet, begging for his life. When the king returns and sees him sprawled over the queen, he assumes the worst. In poetic justice, Haman is hanged on the very gallows he built for Mordecai. But the edict of genocide still stands. Persian law cannot be revoked. So the king empowers Esther and Mordecai to issue a new decree. The Jews may defend themselves. On the 13th day of Adar, when their enemies attack, the Jews fight back and prevail. In Susa alone, 500 attackers are slain. Throughout the provinces, the Jews destroy their would-be killers. Victory turns to celebration. Mourning becomes joy. The day marked for their destruction becomes a feast day. To commemorate this great reversal, Mordecai institutes the festival of Purim, named after the lots Haman cast. It becomes a day of joy, generosity, and remembrance for generations to come. Esther's courage saves her people. Mordecai rises to second in command, and though the name of God is never spoken, his fingerprints are on every twist, every delay, every sleepless night and thrown dice. Esther reminds us, God is at work even when he seems silent. Behind the scenes, beyond the visible, his providence orchestrates rescue, redemption, and reversal. Thank you for joining this deep dive into the living story of Scripture. As we move through each book, remember these ancient words are not just history, they're mirrors, windows, and signposts pointing us to something greater. If this journey stirred something in you, subscribe to Speed Reads and walk with us through every chapter of God's unfolding masterpiece. Until next time, stay courageous, stay faithful, and remember you were made for such a time as this.